everyone. Nice to see everybody here. One quick note, we have to make sure the center aisle is completely clear. Students, you got to slide yourselves over, and adults stay out of the aisle because we've got a color guard coming through with the flags. I'm Larry McDonald. I have the great privilege of being the Master of Ceremonies here today. I did spend 20 years as mayor of Bayfield. I retired 2 years ago, and I still live in Bayfield. And I'm ever so glad to be up here in Red Club today. This is just an exciting event for all of Wisconsin, and particularly our Ashland and Bayfield County area. I want to thank the Washburn High School Jazz Band. What a nice job. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the America the Beautiful Porter ceremony as we celebrate the release of the Apostle Highlands Porter. I thank all of our school children, and I know many of them because I volunteer to teach reading at Bayfield School. There's Ross. And our special guests, including Beth Myers, our representative in the Wisconsin State Legislature. I saw Beth, there's her hand. Welcome, Beth. Senator Janet Huey, Wisconsin Senator Janet Huey, sends her regards. She needed to be at Madison today. I saw her last night, and I couldn't corral her into staying because she had some important meetings. I can't imagine anything more important than this in my life. And also staff members from our congressional delegation representing Senators Baldwin and Johnson and Congressman Duffy. I'd like to also recognize a couple of fellows that I know well. Jim Zorn, who is the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife, Indian Fish and Wildlife Executive Director, or some title like that. He's retiring soon, and Mick Isham, sitting next to him, who's taking the position. So, a couple of very good guys. I would now like everyone to stand. Please rise for the Ojibwe blessing presented by Frank Montano.
It's always an honor when people ask in a good way for someone to do something like this here. This is something that when I was asked, I thought about that, and I looked at those pictures of that piece of the money, the Zunia, with that picture of the islands on there, and I thought maybe through the years when we look at it, we'll remember the first people that were here and the suffering they went through at the times, through all the years to this day, and how they, in the beginning, were the ones that were preserving the islands. And along with now the national parks, it's something that is a great thing to have, a great honor. And it humbles me to be able to come in front of all of you and to ask for the blessings from the spirits, from the Creator. I humble myself before you, Creator, Great Spirit. The spirits from the east and the south and the west and the north. We ask you to come to this place and to bless this gathering and to give us those good feelings and teach us all to love each other and to love this place and to love our Earth Mother, Mama Ki. To think about grandfather's son, grandmother moon. Those two that keep us warm and give us those blessings. And this one that all people look at, this eagle, Isaac, to look over him and to help him to do his job here. Yeshimanadu. Yeshimanadu. We pray that all things in the world will come together and we'll learn to love our Earth Mother more. To take care of all the ones that need our help. And that this place up here is here for a long time. Miigwech Yeshimanadu. Miigwech Yeshimanadu. Miigwech Yeshimanadu. Miigwech Yeshimanadu. Good meal.
Thank you, Brian. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors, the Pledge of Allegiance, and our national anthem. The Wigwam Express, over here, our drum group will play a flag song while colors are coming in, and a veteran song when the colors Now we're going to do the veterans. First round was just a practice. Sincere thank you to the Wigwam Express, the Red Cliff VFW Color Guard, the Sea Scouts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Bayfield High School Choir for the National Anthem. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. It's okay to go to the next. We are honored today to have the tribal chairman from Red Cliff here. I'd like to present Chairman Rick Peterson from the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa and thank him for hosting the event. Please sit down.
Okay, bonjour everybody. Welcome. Wow, I don't know if I've ever seen this many people in here at one time. Maybe we can speak to the superintendent about doing this every weekend, especially during the slow months. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on behalf of myself, the Red Cliff Tribal Council, and our entire community. I'd like to welcome you all to Legendary Waters Resort for this historic event, which is the launch of the Apostle Islands United States Quarter. In trying to figure what I was going to say here, because it really is an honor, and our native ancestors have been here for many years. I looked at the quarter itself to try to get some inspiration, and the first thing I seen is that in looking outside, instead of a kayak, they should probably have a snowmobile on the quarter. I was talking to some people last week who were visiting from a southern state, and they were asking me when it was going to warm up, and I said probably when you drive back south. But that's one of the things that makes this area unique and such a special place for all of us. Anybody who lives here knows that things like late or early winters are part of the trade-off for living in what we consider God's country. From our beautiful and life-sustaining Gitche Gumee, the fresh air, vast woodlands, wildlife, and of course the reason we are all here today, are 21 majestic islands, which we would not trade for anything in the world. With that, it's an honor to be chosen as a location for this event, and I would like to thank the National Park Service for choosing Legendary Waters, the U.S. Mint. And I'd also like to thank the staff of Legendary Waters, the staff of the U.S. Mint, and the staff of the Park Service. So there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes for many, many months to make this happen. And if I could, I'd like to ask you to give them an applause, please. I'd like to thank our Veterans Honor Guard for taking place and always answering the call at such events. I'd also like to give a personal thank to Mr. Henry Buffalo Jr., who is one of our most respected tribal elders here in Red Cliff, for driving up and taking his own time. He's retired now, so he was the first guy I went to. No, in all sincerity, thank you, Henry Miigwech, for coming up. And with that, I'd just like to say again to everybody who took the time to come here, Miigwech, and I hope you all enjoy yourself. Thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also thank you to the Drum for their songs today. I think It's always so important for us as Anishinaabe to start these events appropriately, and I think that all of the groups that were involved helped to make sure that we did that today. My name's Henry Buffalo. My dad's name was Henry Buffalo Sr. My grandfather, Martin Buffalo, was the first chair after they organized their government under the IRA, which is the Indian Reorganization Act. And so I am rather pleased and honored by the chairman having asking me to come up and just say a few words. I did notice that in the original agenda that the National Park Service likes to run these things pretty tightly, so there were identified times that each of the parties who were speaking had, which is fine with me because a lot of times when we don't have at least the target, we tend to kind of go on and go on and go on, but we don't want to do that. 48 years since President Nixon signed the law that authorized the creation of the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. Now, that wasn't the beginning of the relationships with the Red Cliff Band and the Bad River Band and Anishinaabe generally with our neighbors who have been here. We go way further back than that. But one of the most interesting things I've seen in the record when I began thinking about this and researching it is that one of the initial events that took place that the tribes were involved in was a letter from the Bad River Tribal Council back in 1962 asking if the federal government would do an evaluation and a feasibility study to see if the lakeshore near Bad River would be feasible to become, at that time, I think it was called the Recreational Lakeshores Act, become a part of that. As we know this history, and I think history is always important to sort of talk about in these events, as we know this history, the very first, that was the first time the tribes got involved, but even before that, as early in the 1930s, we had one president come visit us here in the Apostle Islands. I think it was President Coolidge. And in the 30s, at that time, there was a move to try and get National Lakeshore here, but that died out. It came back in the 60s, and it happened that another president came to visit the Apostle Islands in 63, and that was President Kennedy. But prior to the 63 visit was this letter from the Bad River tribe that then Governor Gaylord Nelson took to the federal government and says, well, what do you think? Well, that started, I think, the events that rolled out then from the 1962 all the way up to the signing of the act in 1970. The Indian participation in that was not only the initial letter asking for a feasibility study, but also their concerns as the discussions began, and there were, I think, well over 9 bills that were introduced to adopt and create the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. But in those bills, some of the things that the tribes were concerned about included lands, for one, because the original idea or plan by the National Park Service included the taking of some tribal lands in order to create the park, or the National Lakeshore, the Apostle Islands Lakeshore. So that was a concern of the tribes. But at that time, then both Bad River and Red Cliff were involved in this thing. The next thing that they were concerned about was what was going to happen to the tribes' hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. And here's where even the earlier dates become important, because the Treaty of 1854, which I as an attorney had litigated in Minnesota, was very important At the time of these discussions in the 60s, it wasn't clear whether or not the rights continued to exist. That would come later. But the tribes were raising this as an issue for the National Park Service to consider as they were considering the establishment of this lakeshore. One of the other things that I noticed in the record that Bad River specifically had some concerns about were these shacks that were set up. And now I'm 64 this July, but I remember way back when in the late 60s, I think, there were shacks that were beginning to be set up by sportsmen over in sloughs in Bad River. And they were just kind of like squatting, and it didn't look right. But that was one of the things that Bad River raised as a part of these discussions that they wanted taken care of. And the other thing that I think that was most important to them both was economic development and jobs. What would the National Lakeshore bring in terms of economic development and jobs? And of course, I think the important thing to them was, what we're doing and hoping to do in the creation of this National Lakeshore is bring visitors. And bringing visitors is tourism, and tourism can create these jobs and opportunities, I think not only for the tribal members, but for everybody who lives in this area to benefit from the creation of this lakeshore. Well, between 60 and 70, there was a lot of debate that went on back and forth. Ultimately, after the bill was signed, there was especially a major concern by the tribes about this land that the park wanted to take, tribal land that the park wanted to take. Eventually, that was resolved when the law was enacted by the park agreeing that they would not take those lands, that those would remain within the ownership of the secretary, or the trust would remain in trust for the Red Cliff Band and the Bad River Band, and it would not be touched. And so, the other thing that I always like when I do this kind of research is, it reminds me of who our leaders were back then. And so I came across leaders such as Don Ames, who was chairman of the Bad River Reservation at the time this letter was sent out in 1962. Albert Whitebird is another name. Fred Connors, Gus Whitebird, Michael Connors was a person over at Bad River who very advocated in opposition to the creation of the lakeshore, and Bernard Lemieux, a few names from Bad River, names that I remember. I don't know that I necessarily met a lot of these people, but I remember that they were in positions. From Red Cliff, we had early on one of our chairs, Alex Roy. We had Henry Daly. Ken Andrews was a part of that discussion later in 69, 70. And Philip Gordon. Philip's brother, T.J. Gordon, if you remember, was chairman for a long time here. He was, I think, chairman of the Bayfield County Board. But Philip was chairman at a time when the last bill was being considered, and also the Red Cliff Band had opposed the creation of the lakeshore, in major part because of this issue involving the lands. But once that was resolved, it went through and it was adopted. Today, when I first looked at this point, I thought, well, what are the elements that would be important to me as an Anishinaabe on this point itself? And the most important, of course, was the water. So you see the water, and I think that's fantastic. The next thing, and I remember this a lot, I grew up myself in Milwaukee, My dad was a part of the BIA relocation program back in the 50s that sent a lot of our families into the cities. But we would come back here every summer, and I know there's a place just to the east of here, around the bend, where there was a little beach area and a flat rock. And as kids, we would get in our rowboat, and that's when we had to row, and we'd go over there and we'd spend the day just swimming and jumping off of that rock. And so the cliffs, as you see in the point, are a predominant feature there. And I thought the guy who designed it, is the guy who designed it here? Where is it? Oh, there he is. Okay. I thought that was fantastic. And then I look at the canoe, and you know how art is. Every individual person who looks at art, and then sometimes I think of the abstract paintings, you look at them and you try to figure out what they're doing, and you come away with it with your own opinion and interpretation of what that art is doing. And so I had taken a larger photo of this picture here, and I was kind of looking at it, and I was thinking, well, yeah, it's a kayak, and yeah, this guy's got a kayak paddle, but then again, I could kind of see a birch bark canoe in there. And, you know, the guy's dipping that other part of the paddle down there, you can see part of it. So I was thinking, oh yeah, that could look like a canoe paddle. And so there's my interpretation of that element and how it fits in what's important to the Anishinaabe. And so I thank the designer, I thank the National Park Service for bringing the event here and for acknowledging both the Red Cliff Band and the Bad River Band's importance to this whole process. Because, you know, when we've been partners for a long time, the governments, the tribal governments, the federal government, the state government, the local governments. We've been partners for a long time, and that's not going to end soon. We're going to be partners for a much longer time. And one of the things I think that's always important in those relationships is that we look out for each other. And I think that your deciding to come here to launch this here, I think is very indicative of your commitment to those government-to-government relationships that you have out here, and I thank you very much. Thank you for your
Thanks to Chairman Rick Peterson for his kind words of welcome, and also to Henry Buffalo for describing an interesting background history of what's happened here. Thank you. Glad you're here. We hope that Bad River Chair Mike Wiggins could be here, but I don't see him yet. He may pop in. Boy, I fixed him, didn't I? Henry, you mentioned Gaylord Nelson. I don't know if you remember one of Gaylord's, of my favorite comments of him is the best talk, the best speech is that connects welcome and thank you by the shortest amount of time possible. Thanks to Gaylord. I'd like to present Bob Krumnacher, our superintendent of the Apostle Islands National Lake Shore.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Chairman Peterson. Thank you, Henry Buffalo. And I wish Mike Wiggins had been here because he is a great friend of the park as well. To all of our invited guests, community leaders, local citizens, friends, and friends with a small f, and the friends of the Apostle Islands with a capital F, and coin collectors, I've met many of you from near and far. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing this historic event with the Park Service and the U.S. Mint today. It's especially cool to have all you young people here because you, as well as the drum group, add a little energy which is incredible. And I want to thank or note that Chairman Peterson noted the staffs of all the organizations, and I want to add to that. And I want to specifically call out Sarah Sutton, Jeanette Hoopman, and Myra Foster of the Park Service staff, because you have behind the scenes orchestrated so much of this. And you'll see lots of people here in gray and green today. We have essentially closed the park offices and told every one of our staff if they want to be here, we want them here. We're going to do a staff photo afterwards. Not all of you know this. And I would say past and present employees in the park, because I see a lot of former employees here too, will never look this good again. So we want to take that picture. But I want to also point out that to the park staff, this is your event. It's not the event of those of us up here or those of us who necessarily get to do the media interviews. This is about you and the park and the tremendous relationship we have with these communities that several have mentioned already, the great quality work that we are known for. That's on your shoulders. And I want to personally thank you and ask everyone else to recognize the incredible park staff we've got here. So it's not surprising that the speakers up here are hitting some of the same themes. I will tell you that we did not coordinate any of these remarks ahead of time. But I want to acknowledge, and I'm glad I'm not the only one, that these lands, which are currently called a national park or a national lakeshore, have not always been in that role, and they were stewarded for hundreds, if not thousands of years by the original peoples, the Anishinaabe people. It was a national park, it was their homeland, it is still the homeland of the Ojibwe people, and we are very appreciative of the fact that you have welcomed us here. And quite intentionally, we are holding this ceremony in Red Cliff, and our keynote speakers, as you've already heard, are leaders and elders of the Red Cliff and Bad River bands. And that collaboration, and I would say friendship, between Red Cliff and Bad River has never been as strong as it is today, and I'm grateful for the people of Red Cliff, for the people of Bad River, for the leadership, and that willingness to work through sometimes difficult times. And I also note my friends from the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Commission, Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, it's yours as well. And to a point that Henry Buffalo made, where the treaty reserved rights for hunting, fishing, gathering, and trapping were so important to the tribes, I will say that probably the most important thing that I've ever been involved in my career is working with the partners in the tribes to negotiate and finalize an agreement which acknowledges those rights. And this is the only national park in the country that that's ever been done. Places are important to people. And Americans are in love with their national parks, not simply because they are great vacation destinations, but because they also represent what ecologist Starker Leopold, the son of Aldo Leopold, great icon of Wisconsin, what he called vignettes of primitive America. National parks embody our heritage, both natural and cultural, as well as our future as the least impacted, most protected, and we hope the most resilient lands in our nation. The 21 islands of the National Lakeshore are not just the most scenic part of this beautiful state of Wisconsin, they also represent the most intact ecosystems in this state. But the Apostle Islands are not pristine. They have, as you've heard from Henry Buffalo, a rich human history. In order to tell the story, the full story of the Apostle Islands, one would be negligent to not tell the story of how people and the lake and the environment have wrestled with one another, how they have interacted, influenced, and changed one another. And the peoples who've been here before us, both Native and European Americans, have been good stewards of this place that they call home, and they used it. Distance from the rest of civilization has been both blessing and bane. And it certainly created economic challenges for those who call this area home. And as we've heard, in the 1960s, some visionary people, both tribal and non-tribal, saw that the pace of change was likely to accelerate, And they recognized that isolation alone was not going to be sufficient to safeguard these islands' undeveloped shorelines, beautiful sandstone cliffs and sea caves, the windswept beaches, and the sheltered anchorages. It wasn't going to be enough to protect them for public benefit and from exploitation and overdevelopment. They also saw the economic potential in this area, and they knew that carefully managed recreation in a matrix of wildness was going to be the future, and it is our future. It's our reality today, where the National Lakeshore is an anchor in a very vibrant tourist economy here in the Bayfield-Red Cliff area. Economists estimate that the economic impact of the National Lakeshore is over 700 jobs supported, and in the big ice cave year of 2014, $54 million impact within a 60-mile radius. And I was thinking about these quarters, that would be 216 million Apostle Islands quarters. And thanks to the creative thinking of our friends at the Bayfield Chamber and Visitor Bureau and the Bayfield County Tourism Office, there's a lot of effort to get these quarters in circulation in this community. And so we're hoping it will be hard to get any other quarter in Bayfield over the next few months. So we do owe a great debt to the fathers and mothers of this park, and in addition to the people that Henry Buffalo mentioned, I want to call out Gaylord Nelson, again, Martin Hanson, Bud Jordahl, Bill Bechtel, and Julia Nelson, politicians and locals whose vision and I know I leave many people off that list, and I apologize for that. I had the great honor of meeting every one of those gentlemen in their later years. They're all gone now. So we are now the stewards. We are the next generation, and it's our job, young people in front. We will pass it to you, hopefully in better shape than we found it. Their legacy is embodied in this place, and the fact that it will forever be preserved and treasured by the American people. And now that legacy is also engraved as well on this quarter that we launched today, and I think that they would be very, very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the words. Mark Landry of the U.S. Mint joins us today. Mark is the Acting Associate Director for the Numismatic and Bullion Directorate. Mark.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning. I'm honored to be here with you today to introduce the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore Quarter to our nation. I'm pleased to see that so many of you were able to join us this morning for this unique event. 8 years ago, the United States began issuing quarters featuring designs depicting national forests, parks, and other national sites as part of the United States Mint America the Beautiful Quarter program. Each year we issue 5 new national sites of the quarters. Reverse, you know that as the tail site. These quarters connect America through coins to our most treasured places. At each America the Beautiful coin event, we celebrate our nation's wisdom and foresight in conserving the beautiful and historical national sites for all Americans. Adding to the importance of today, on the reverse of your quarter featuring the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore is the 100th reverse design on a quarter since 1932. Additionally, the Apostle Islands quarter is the 42nd coin in the America the Beautiful Quarters program. The second quarter to be introduced into 2018, and one of only 2 national lake shores to be represented in the America the Beautiful Quarter program. Millions of Americans will see the new quarter, and as a result, many will want to travel to Wisconsin to kayak on Lake Superior and observe the sandstone sea caves on Devil's Island. Just as the guiding light beacons from the Devil's Island Lighthouse, as it has done for decades, the Apostle Islands Quarter will serve as a shining example of the inherent value of Apostle Islands National Lakeshore and the people that protect and frequent it, shedding light on its splendor, beauty, and purpose for future generations to follow. We are privileged today to have Richard Masters with us, the artist who created this inspiring design. Richard, thank you for contributing your artistic skills to help the story of our nation. You will also find the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore Quarter in classrooms across the country. Teachers are using lessons plans inspired by this coin and others, which are available on our website. We invite all Americans to come along with us on the journey from national site to national site through the America the Beautiful Quarter program, and also to come along on the journey of the Apostle Islands Quarter as they pass from hand to hand across the country, connecting America through coins. Now for a special presentation. I have with me 2 of these new coins from the first day of production. One is from our facility in Philadelphia, and the other one is from our facility in Denver. Superintendent Krummenacher, will you please join me? I am pleased to present these 2 America the Beautiful quarters from the first day of production to the men and women of the National Park Service. Thank you for preserving and protecting the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. When people learn I work for the Mint, they jokingly ask me for free samples. Well, today's your lucky day. Everyone here who is age 18 and under will receive a brand new quarter. You will be among the first people in our country to receive the Apostle Islands quarter. When you get this coin, you can spend it, or you can put it away someplace safe, and one day pass it on to your grandchildren and tell them about the day you helped make history. Now it's time to launch a new coin. Superintendent Krummenacher, Chairman Peterson, Chairman Wiggins, and Mr. Buffalo, will you please join me for the traditional coin port? On behalf of the men and women of the United States Mint, I congratulate the people of Wisconsin on your new Apostle Islands quarter.
Thank you, Mark. What an interesting presentation. Isn't that great? As we gather for the celebration of the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore Quarter, we do so on the banks of Lake Superior, which, by the way, is the greatest of all the Great Lakes. Anybody's never heard me say that. And what a privilege it is to do so. I would like to thank Legendary Waters Resort for hosting this event, Northern State Bank for assisting with quarters purchases, the 5 area schools represented here today: Bayfield, Washburn, South Shore, LaPointe Elementary, and the Lake Superior Learning Community. The Red Cliff, a lot of special kids here. I'd like to thank the Red Cliff and Bad River bands of Lake Superior, Chippewa, the Friends of the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore, Bayfield County Tourism, the Bayfield, Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Mint, and our many, many volunteers. After the conclusion of this event today, in just a few minutes, if you're interested in obtaining quarters, you may go to the coin exchange table located on the wall to my left, or your right, where you can exchange bills for rolls of quarters. I understand there's a 1 roll minimum, $10, and a 10 roll maximum, and it's cash only. No kids or pets in trade. One wants to get traded here. Our quarter design artist, Richard Masters, is available today to answer questions and to sign quarter rolls in the lobby. We also have partner tables to visit in the lobby as well. In addition, stop by the refreshment table in the back for cake. And finally, we are so pleased to have such a great turnout from our local schools, and if the students, you're going to receive a free quarter. I'd like to ask the Bayfield students to remain seated, and the other students, you'll get your quarters as you get back to class. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, here we are. So Bayfield, stay seated, and other students, when we're done, Bayfield students stay seated, and volunteers will come to hand your quarters. On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you for celebrating this historic day. Thanks again. Take care.
Okay, if we can have the kids go out this side door right here. Right out this way. All the kids, if you can go out this way, please. Thank you. Okay, so if you are looking to get quarters, the line starts right here in this corner where I'm pointing. Please don't cut in line. Okay, thank you.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to get these kids back to school where they don't want to go. So if you're waiting in line for the quarters, just let the kids come out. That would be fantastic. We promise we have enough quarters for everyone and you will not have to wait that long.